Welcome to the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Snyder, and this week, Coach Meg Young is on the show. She is the NSCA Pro Coach of the Year with the Seattle Sounders, performance coach, and a whole bunch more. We're going to get right into the conversation, but before that, remember, if you're looking for continuing education, December 9th, Arizona State Clinic for the NSCA. I'll be presenting there on functional anatomy and how to apply it to strength conditioning, as well as the end of January 27th and 28th. I'll be back in the Boston area in Needham, Mass at Physio X, where we'll be doing a 2-day deep dive into biomechanics, corrective measures, and strategies. Here's the show. This week, I've invited Coach Meg Young on. She is a performance coach for the Seattle Sounders, and we're just going to get underway. Meg, first, welcome to Zealous.
Thank you so much.
And Coach, just a little bit of a super heroine backstory. Like, what got you to Seattle? I know you went to Auburn, but just give us a little background about your road to success. And by the way, congratulations on being awarded Pro Coach of the Year.
Yeah, thanks so much, and congrats to you too. I think that my journey is like a lot of other coaches out there of you go where the opportunities are when you start, and you go where you feel like you're going to get the right education of whatever you're trying to specialize in. So when I left undergrad at UNC Wilmington, I was a thrower there, competed for 4 years. I went to Baylor University, and to age myself a little bit, back then, there wasn't as many programs as there are now that are strength and conditioning specific in exercise physiology compared to just being cardiac rehab, clinical rehab type setting. So Baylor University was one of those places. I was fortunate enough to get in, to go there, and love that experience. And like you said, that took me to Auburn next because I had the opportunity to work for some really, back then, young coaches early in their career. And I wanted the opportunity to work for more senior coaches that have been around for a while. And so when a professional internship opened up at Auburn, it wasn't even with football, but I made it about football with Coach Yox. And I was happy to go there and work with him. And at the time, I think he was the president of like one of our governing bodies. So that was a awesome opportunity, and got hired the next year. I was there 12 years. And then, you know, after you've been in your career for a while, it goes from like, how do I continue to grow? And then it's like, well, what opportunity is making me grow? Right. Like, instead of necessarily going for education or learn from someone, it's like, well, what's going to make me grow as a person and also as a coach? And that definitely was the move to the NWSL for me. So I was a high performance director in Chicago with a professional women's team there, and did that from 2019 through 2021. And then also, life's not just about yourself. I have a partner, and she was itching to get back to Seattle, where she did her master's and doctorate. And an opportunity came up with the Seattle Sounders, and we kind of jumped in both feet. And here we are a little over 2 years later now.
And what do you think about the Seattle area?
So I've been here quite a bit before. Actually, I used to come when the Sounders first started their sports science conference. That was like my into sports science way back, and way back, I think it's like 10 years ago now, and into Seattle. So Seattle is such a unique place in that it has so much water, and the water is just as important it is to me as it is to you. And you get so much green. So like even in winters, people talk about the rainy season, it's still gorgeous, still beautiful. So love Seattle, love the organization. It's good.
10 years ago, what was sports science?
10 years ago, AMS platforms were just starting to come out. I remember getting like cold emails from different AMS platforms of like, hey, what do you think about this? And it was like the idea of conceptually pulling in different data streams into a place. It wasn't even necessarily a pathway for it. It's like, what does it look like to have things in one place and not just build in Excel? Like that was AMS. And then back then it was a lot of just heart rate. Sleep was very early then. Most people, if they were looking at sleep then, they were trying to get in touch with Sherry Ma when she was at Stanford, and they were using fatigue science, which actually like came from the military over to the pro side, over to the sports side. That was kind of sports science back then. Besides then, it was like clinical lab research.
And being a performance coach with the Sounders, what's sports science now?
I think I'll speak more general, not even just at the Sounders. It's like, and not even just sport, but also Gen Pop. I think sports science is just human science, and people have done a much better job of realizing like a high performance lifestyle and high performance optimization is something that a lot of people are seeking, not just in sport. So I think the big buckets are still foundational things of sleep and nutrition. We've just gotten a lot better at giving better advice there and having better feedback. So like, how is the feedback? How is the education? And then having professionals in each of those areas as opposed to one person doing it all. So it's more like the delineation of information has grown so much.
And with the expectation of improved performance and mitigation or reduction of injury overall, is that what we're really talking about?
Yeah, I think the rehab process also has gotten a lot better. So when the events of injury do happen, it's how much more detailed can we be around the individual differences as opposed to the big buckets of, hey, you probably need some range of motion, you probably need some strength, you probably need to reintegrate. Like we've gotten so much better at those granular details instead of being black and white of yes and no, you can really dive into the gray space.
So in the brief time that we've been talking, you strike me as a person of curiosity, of unsated appetite for information experience. And so with that, where does your where does your attention go? Whether it's in the field or outside of the industry, where are your interests?
Currently,
Yes.
um, currently my interests are a lot into applying assessments that allow us a brain-based understanding of movement and gait and output and like the shapes uh, players create and humans create for running, for sprinting. So whether that's learning from the people at Altus and like Stu and those guys around what they're doing, or if it's diving more into, it took a while to get there, understanding foundation neuroanatomy to be able to understand neuroscience, to kind of go into this approach of how much is the visual and vestibular system playing into athletic performance and how are we assessing that. Those are the areas that I'm still I will forever say I'm curious about, because the what we know about the brain increases every day. So but those are the areas I'm most curious.
Well, I think we have that in common. That's cool. Uh, Yeah, definitely been exploring motor neurology, visual and vestibular drills and assessments, and finding out how that carries over, whether onto the playing field or just activity of daily life, is really just. I think we're on scratching the surface on an iceberg, really. But what about other things now? To get more into the personal realm here, I know that you've overcome and you're thriving with your own health. Do you care sharing a little bit of that?
Sure, sure. In 2015, when I was coaching at Auburn, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia and went through treatment for that. I did standard chemotherapy for leukemia and then a clinical trial drug. That trial drug didn't make it to market, meaning it wasn't successful at helping enough people, but it helped me. Um,
Oh.
and 5 years later, I was able to say at 5 years after remission that I'm technically cured. So the chance of my reoccurrence is in the same likelihood of someone's just occurrence in natural health.
How is it that you got into a test situation like that?
My treatment was at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, which is a teaching hospital. And, there's clinical studies going on for everything, but I fell into the hands of Dr. Harry Erba, who is an AML specialist and researcher. So I was fortunate to be with the right head guy at the right time that was doing research in that area and was healthy enough to go through a clinical trial. So I met the genetic markers of what they were trying to test for, meaning I had no FLT3 gene mutation, but I did have a nucleophosphine gene mutation that they wanted to see, which basically meant in certain cells, the material that should be in the nucleus of the cell was in the cytoplasm, which is kind of wild, but the body's crazy. And that went back to normal after I was in remission.
Wow. Okay, so there's usually one or two driving forces to create change in someone's life, inspiration or desperation. It seems like this event, whichever one you chose, was uh, an event that was life changing. How has it changed you?
I think that, a lot of the times when people specifically with leukemias it's a pediatric cancer or it's like a geriatric second cancer. It's not really something that you see a lot of 30-year-olds just walking around with. So
Yeah.
one, I was at the healthiest point of my life um, when this happened. So I think those things allowed me a perspective of I kind of knew who I was because I'm 30, I've experienced some life, and I was still strong enough to fight it, meaning I wasn't in the sunset years of my life. Um, so I think that really probably what it did was being a strength coach can be a lonely journey in terms of like we put our head down and work, and sometimes we forget to look up and realize the community around us. So when things happen that pause everything else and you get to kind of look up and you realize how many people are looking at you in support of you, that's a really unique feeling and perspective to have so many coaches, like whether it was the soccer community, the strength and conditioning community that reached out and gave support. And this was before like social was really driving in this big way of communication. So it was a unique opportunity to feel so much support by my career and by also my peers. So there's that, and then you get moments that change people or refine them. So I'd say my cancer refined who I was. I don't think it necessarily changed who I was. Um, and I consider it one of the best things that ever happened in my life because ever since then, I know what I stand for and I know what I don't. And that's not meant to be like I have this hard line of who I am, but I care so much to give back and finding ways to do that's like probably my foundational cornerstone of how I like to operate my life.
No, it sounds that's completely understandable. It's like core values were fine tuned, and the noise surrounding the the background was pushed away. So you've got a clearer vision of how you define yourself. So how do you? What's
I
important to you? What's not important to you?
The way I define myself is a connector, whether it's people to themselves or people to each other or people to information or information to each other. It, another aspect of that was like coming out of treatment. There's this whole like 2-year phase of every month you're like, oh, I feel a little better. Oh, I feel even better than last month. And that's like a cyclical thing of like trying to relearn and gain a different relationship back with yourself, of your body, of like, okay, this is the body I can get to work and do things. Like I can trust you to kind of move forward now. So with that being said, it comes to a point too of um, how can I use my energy differently. So for me, that was going back to school and understanding neuroscience more. So like that's kind of where all this came from, is like I can use my physical body to coach, 6 to 8 hours a day, whatever is needed, but I can use my brain and operate at a really high level for a lot longer span of the day. So how can I leverage that and understand why that is more? So I got another master's degree in data science and information systems to try and understand this information system a little bit more and how to help not just in my career, but also help my curiosity of understanding processes and systems and make a little bit more framework for my life based on logic and science.
Well, I am just getting underway with a master's program myself right now, and that involves research data analysis. And my hat's off to you because I feel like I am learning Latin or something. I just have to go with one word at a time, look it up. What does that mean? Oh my gosh, am I ever going to get an understanding of this? That's tremendous. And so, with this information that you've gathered, I'm just curious, how are you applying it?
I think a lot of like applying that is how you intake information and filter it. You have a better filter when you have better systems and saying, does this fit into a system of use case and where? If you don't have a system or a framework, you're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, instead of saying like, what question am I trying to answer and what is this solving for? So having more of that like analytical mindset of where does this fit and what is it, a sum of or a subtraction of or a fragment of, as opposed to, hey, this has good research, let's use it. There's already something to work off of.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think if we're looking for, I always look to find commonalities between people rather than differences, because it just helps connect a little bit more. And I think there's some commonalities for you and myself. Santa Cruz is rife with various communities, and I love living here because of the sense of community that we have, whether it's in the surf community, the educational schooling systems, whether it's the fitness community, or other ones that I belong to, like nonprofits and so on. What's community like for you?
Yeah, I mean, um, I think that community is like the intersectionality of the different communities I belong to, and my purpose, or one of them, is bringing some of these communities I belong to. Like cancer is a community I belong to. I didn't necessarily choose it,
Right.
but it's something I went through. Fitness and performance, is something that I do, and that's a big part of who I am and like what I like to implement in my lifestyle. My community I'm currently trying to bring together is those two, and can join them and show them that I think so many people in fitness and performance do a great job supporting cancer initiatives. What I'm trying to do is help people that have been through cancer or supporting people in cancer. How do they get into our fitness community? How do they remember that that is for them? And because I think as coaches, we believe in the value of how important fitness is as an aspect of a lifestyle. So making people realize like it's a passion of mine that 100 million people realize a high performance lifestyle and high performance optimization is actually for them. And it's not just for the 30 guys I currently work for, but the buckets of sleep and nutrition and some form of training and cardiovascular work like that those can be foundational things for everyone. And how do we create that access and the opportunity for that to be a real thing?
So how do you do that? Is it just through speaking engagements? Is it through showing up and just being present at some kind of cancer benefit or race or something? Is it through the team's organization? How are you combining, conjoining those two communities?
I mean, I think one, you have to be a representation of those things with yourself. For me, it's showing up as who I am every day, and being willing to talk about cancer and the positive things that came from it. So it's not just the big scary event that happens in people's lives, but it's like, what is the positive impact that comes from that? Because now when people reach out to me on social, and whether they're in support or they have questions about AML, it's saying yes to those opportunities to talk to people I've never met. So most of that will never show up in an event or on social media or things like that. But I think it's the small N of one impacts adding upon each other, and being someone that people know they can reach out to, and just I can hold space, because it's not awkward for me to let you talk about the drugs you're on or the current drugs your kid is going on. That's not scary for me. I'm not going to say like, are you okay? I know you're not okay. So it's how I show up. And then it's currently, I've decided to do a little challenge. I'm by no means a avid rucker or even like long distance hiker or anything like that, but I'm currently, for the month of October, the 1st through the 20th, which is my gear day, doing a 5K ruck every day, and then inviting people within my coaching community to have a 5K ruck in their community, and make that not just for we're doing a hard thing, but we're also bringing people to this thing with us, inviting them to be a part of our community, and saying, I understand that you might just be able to walk and you might only be able to do 1 mile, but I'm in here holding space in support with you, and I want to encourage you to do this thing. So it's introducing them to our fitness community with the most positive intent of bringing them on with that.
Well, you've got some great environments to be doing 5Ks. And are we talking in the downtown Seattle area? Are we talking out toward like Alpental, Snoqualmie, Lake Washington. Where are you rucking?
Yeah. So for me, like during the week, I'm just doing them wherever I can make it happen, whether it's 5:30 in the morning at Seward Park, whether it's in the evening around Starfire where I work, like it doesn't matter. The big one for me though is inviting people on Friday. So the first 3 Fridays, the first one's going to be at Seward Park. I know the third one's going to be at Alki Beach, and I'll drop that location like on the Monday of each of those. And the second one, I'm still figuring out to try and get probably some of that North Seattle area to make a different community feel like they're invited by making it an easier location for them.
And how many people are we talking?
No clue. I mean, no one could show up or one person could show up. So for me, it doesn't matter. It's about creating that opportunity to see who shows up.
And you're doing this every day starting basically yesterday, October 1st till the 20th?
Yep.
How are your feet doing after the first day?
I currently have on my toe spacers and I have a little acupressure ball under my feet. So, you know, we're doing everything we can to keep them together. But, somebody else was asking me about that. And to be honest, just in the messages I've received, I know it's only been 2 days. A big part of why I feel like it's even gotten this many messages because Go Ruck was willing to like partner with me for this event. And so you can like buy a Ruck for 10% off, and then 20% is going to go to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And their willingness to kind of do that and send me a Ruck and all those things is like, I've gotten so many messages of people from all over different countries and just kind of sharing their story. It's like when you have inspiration that comes from like holding space for someone, it feels very different than like I'm just doing this hard workout. It's like I'm honoring someone by using my own body. Like that is one of the coolest privileges I've ever had.
Very nice. Yeah, no lederhosen's required, right? No, just that's perfect. Okay, that's great. And I don't see that stopping. I don't see this being an exclusive sole event for the month of October.
I've already
Potentially,
been asked about like what's happening in November, and let's just get through week one first, and see where it goes. The one thing I'm gonna share tomorrow in a video is um, I'd like to dedicate each ruck to a person or a few people, whether they want me to kind of give them encouragement and send that publicly on social or privately on social. I want people to feel like they can DM me and kind of tell me what's going on with them or the people they're supporting. And, whether it's just sending positive vibes, and I believe in that, or, actually sending them a message of support on social, I'm happy to do those things. So putting the names to and faces to the battles people are currently having, I think is an important part of this.
several years back, I had this harebrained idea of doing a long distance paddle across Monterey Bay. Fortunately, there were some others that were equally insane. And we ended up doing it, turning it into kind of a fundraising event. And now it's become an annual thing. And I've gladly stepped away. But is this along the same lines? You think this could be something that you could be coming up with?
Totally. Yeah.
And uh, and so just curious, how do you get the word out there? How do you make this grow? How do you generate buzz aside from your close friends and relatives?
That's all I've done is reach out to my network. I think one of the cool things about being a coach and having done this for over 15 years is I have a really strong network of coaches. And some coaches touch so many people's lives. Therefore, I have a bigger network than if I just worked in necessarily this space, So just relying on that coaching network and saying, hey, if you're open to and honestly, I didn't even have to ask. Like people just saw the video and shared it and felt moved to do so. And I think that's an easy thing to do because so many people have been impacted by cancer in some way. So you watch a video like that and someone instantly comes to your mind and you're like, that's cool. How can I help with that? And like you're saying, like the paddle across Monterey, all those things are great. And it's fundraising for good causes. This is part of that. There is a fundraising piece, but the bigger challenge I'm missing is how many people can we encourage to feel included in our community?
Nice. And without throwing the players under the bus or anything, you got any Sounders that are going out there on these 5Ks with you?
We have 2 games this week, and
Oh, don't throw that as an excuse. Come on now, coach.
no, no. I mean, I don't really mix work and personal. There's plenty of the guys that are supporting me personally, but if they decide they want to do something, that's completely on them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know you got LA Galaxy coming up pretty soon here, and nothing would make me happier than to see you walk away with a W after that game. But what is it like for your lifestyle being a performance coach in the MLS? Does what give me the highs and lows if you don't mind, so that any of the younger performance coaches, strength coaches, athletic trainers out there that are aspiring to go into the pros, give them a picture of what it's like if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when people think about professional sports, their mind gravitates maybe to a couple things, but like to the resources you'll have and like we can do so many things. Well, you also have to remember the people you work with do so many things. So that opportunity is like, how much do you want this to influence what this already is? And really being careful and learning what this is and what's important to them in their individual performance, as opposed to just saying, this is the way we're doing things. You come in with a system with a guy that's in his 16th year being pro, and you've never asked him a question about what he needs. You've missed the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. So communication and clear communication and getting buy-in with your players, knowing how much you can change and when you have to kind of know when to just stand back and let the process happen.
Well, and I think it's just putting the person first before the player. When we talk about holistic performance, and let's say you're not in pro sports and you're just the CEO of your own life, well, there's so many components that go into that. And yet, when we become performance coaches in professional sport, we're like, this is what we have to bring to the table. You still have to consider all these other things that makes that person and what's important to them, and what are the stressors they have outside of work. What are the things they're dealing with in terms of, are they in the first contract they've ever had because they're 15 years old, or are they in their 20th year and they're still trying to get better or keep that edge? Like, those things are all drivers. And then the communication, to your point, and the system and framework that you go back to is so important. Of where does this fall? How can I help and refine my own system of what I thought was performance in a lens of professional soccer and make it better? So much of what we get to learn about is what applies, because we have a unique N of one population. There will never be another player X that I currently work with. He is N of one. And when you approach everyone as that N of one, there's general themes that fall into place, but you get to ask a lot more individual questions, and then players feel looked after when you do that.
Do you dabble with sports psychology, mental skills coaching, that type of thing, or is that something that's just inherent?
I don't dabble. We have a great sports psych on our team, our mental skills coach. He does a great job. He worked in professional baseball forever, so we're fortunate to have someone with a skill set. I think just the person I am, of wanting to hold space to figure out who you are, or help you figure out who you are, and then hold space when you mess that up and get challenged. Like, that's just who I am to anyone, whether it's a player, a friend, a peer.
Okay, so it is a team, obviously a team of top professionals, and I'm not really relating it to the athletes themselves, but to the support team of coaches, trainers, and the like.
For sure.
What do you learn from your colleagues, and what do they learn from you?
I think that when you're on that like team behind the team is how, like, it's a team of people supporting a team. Um, when you first come in to any new league, let alone a new team, right? Like, I'd never been in MLS, let alone for the Sounders, let alone men's professional sports. You have a good opportunity for that team to behind the team help you navigate that space and not fall into the pitfalls that you didn't even know existed. It's like the unwritten rule of team sports. You didn't know there was a rule there, but if you step in that, that's a landmine. I think that having those people that have been around the league, around the game, for a lot longer than me in different roles. Like they help with that. They help me fine tool or sharpen my tools to know where I can interject and make impact versus like, hey, hold back here, go there. And the willingness to not have your ego involved in that because you know that they know what you don't know, which is experience within that organization or that population. I think what we bring to the table is an ability to maybe challenge some old ideals or challenge some old thought patterns or enhance some systems or lay in new systems. Like that's what you get to do as a teammate, right? Is, hey, I see a gap here. What do you think about this? And then making sure the other teammates you have or practitioners you work with, they know the clarity of why you're bringing that to the table and who's it going to apply to. Like already answer those questions, kind of like a research study, right? You want to answer the who, what, when, where, why of how this is going to be implemented, affected, and what's the long-term view or the short-term view, and being able to not sell that, but understand that and be confident in what you're bringing to the table. And then I think at the end of the day, it's still showing up for those people as a person too. It's like, hey, you're having a rough day. I got your back. What do you need from me? Like just asking, what do you need from me is a really underrated question.
And when it comes to the difference between the leagues that you've worked in now, is there any major difference or is it
The resource
mostly?
of people.
Oh,
So in terms of the NWSL, my first year, I was N of one and we had one athletic trainer. By the year I left there was me, two part-time people on my side, contracted two more, and then medical had one, was getting a second, had student interns, and had a whole department now. So it's like the resource of people is your biggest resource. If it's only two practitioner, it's not good to be outnumbered, So like I think, how are you going to provide elite care and elite performance without the right resource of people? That's going to be challenging.
and your resources now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a staff of 4. Medical is a staff of 6 currently. Yeah, it's way different. So you're looking at 10 people
And
plus some part-times.
being a thrower,
Hmm.
rotary power, explosiveness, there is some carryover into soccer, football, however you'd like to coin it. Are there other sports that intrigue you that pique your interest? Not to say that if any of the front office is listening right now, it's not like you're unhappy or anything like that. I'm not trying to paint that picture, but are there other sports that you're like, ooh, boy, just get me at those?
I mean, so throwing is all angular physics. Surfing is all angular physics, right? Like right position, right power, right angle, right entry. That's throwing. That's exit velocity, all of those things. You can find that in almost every sport. So what's more interesting to me is the commonality of physics and power within each sport. I miss the massive humans of American football. Just the massive people like that, and there so many of them. So that creates like a unique environment, and it's always just loud. Even when it's quiet, it's loud. So I think that's fun.
Even when it's quiet, it's loud.
Yeah.
Oh,
I grew up in basketball country in North Carolina. I'm a Duke fan from the day I was born. So like I still have like so much of a heart of basketball, but I wouldn't say more interesting to me is there's not a sport that isn't interesting to me. I come from a track background. Plenty of my players love golf now. So my partner loves golf. So like I have more time spent watching YouTube videos on how to fix a slice, so those things are interesting. And then weightlifting, when you're a thrower, you're a part-time weightlifter. That's just the deal. So I think all those things are interesting. A sport I don't know a lot about, but from the outside looking in for a 30-second view would be Aussie rules, football.
yeah.
Like, no, not enough to even speak on it, but you talk massive humans that hit each other in massive forces, but also can run a lot and also throw an object. That's fun.
Right on. That's great. So we're coming to the end of our time, and I really appreciate you diving into more of a personal realm and what you're accomplishing. not trying to, because you're accomplishing
Appreciate
some
that.
great connections, and that's magnificent. If people, this is the time to kind of like put out some information on the Ruck challenge,
Sure.
or anything else. Uh, can you direct us in the right place?
Sure. Currently, all of that's just running on my own social, which is at Coach Megastrong on Instagram. If there is something I can challenge everyone to do, it's just go out into your own community and make people realize that any aspect of fitness can be for them. It just has to the right information's in the dose, right? So, how do you make it approachable and inviting people to join you like that? That would be my challenge to coaches. It's really easy when they pay to be there or they're on a scholarship to be there, but how can you get the people that have just finished treatment or have just finished, 3 hard years of supporting their child going through treatment? How can you make them motivated to join you, and do something for themselves? That would be my challenge. And yeah, follow along. Whole point of I just came up with a hashtag of ruckus, like cause a ruckus, meaning like ruck with us, but and cause a ruckus is just to create that community and that bridge. So follow me on social, and if there's anything I can do that you're doing on your own and you want people to know about, like send that to me. I'm happy to, talk or share or do what I can.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure all the information's in the description below the podcast. And you know, there are times where the Sounders come down and play the Quakes, and I'm just over the mountains there at Santa Cruz. So next season, or who knows, playoffs, you never know. I mean, if you find yourself down here, you've got a place to come hang out, and I'd love for you to come on over to Santa Cruz with time permitted. But until then, maybe we'll just be meeting at an NSCA event, or who knows, I'll be in the stand for a Sounders game, or maybe a Timbers, because my daughter goes to school just outside of Portland, and well, you guys play each other quite a bit. So I look forward to the time where physically we can reach out and shake hands, give a hug, and all that. But Coach, this has been great. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. We'll get out and share some waves together.
Oh, even better. That brings this episode of Zealous to a close. I want to thank Coach Meg for coming on, as well as the Sounders organization for allowing this event to happen. If you want to follow Coach Meg and all that she's doing to support the community, please do with the links below the description. And if you haven't subscribed to Zealous yet, please also click that subscribe button. Every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. We've got great guests coming on in the world of sports, the pros behind the pros. If you want continuing education, be sure to check out the NSCA's Arizona State Clinic. I'll be one of the presenters there December 9th at Chandler Community College in Chandler, Arizona. I'll be talking about functional anatomy and how to apply it to strength conditioning. And then at the end of January, I'll be back outside of Boston in Needham, Massachusetts at Physio X, where I'll be doing a 2-day deep dive into closed chain biomechanics and the utilization of foam wedges underneath the feet to improve performance. Until next week, go have a great time.